Whenever you're ready.
Hello, humans. Welcome to this special presentation by Amateurish Productions. We're receiving this today with myself, Shawn Banerjee, and our lovely GM, Justin Lane. And unfortunately, we don't have a full episode for you this week. We have some big editing lifts to do because of me and how bad I am at clicking my mouse. That's only partially untrue. But we want to make sure that we're always giving you the best possible product and best possible experience. So we're going to take a little bit of extra time editing this week's episode. It'll be out in 2 weeks. Yeah, Justin, on a regular.
When this releases,
yes,
it will be out in 1 week.
1 week. So come back next Tuesday, and we'll have episode 7 for you. But today we're gonna rewind a little bit to episode 104, Hellsdivers. As most of you know, I'm sure, I was unavailable to do the talkback on that one. So one, forgive me, it's been a little bit of time since I watched the episode, and two, Justin was like, well, we gotta talk more about it. And I'm excited.
We did a whole game design thing, and the person with actual in-field game design experience was not present for the talkback.
We'll get a little bit more of a deep dive here. So if you're into that, please stick around. And if you're not, stick around anyway. Come on, what are you doing? Small creators, support us.
Yeah, and I mean, normally this kind of thing we would throw on the Patreon on like our early paid tiers and above. But given that we weren't going to have an episode this week, it made a lot more sense to just bring this to the main feed. Also, if you're listening to this on the pod and you want to see our faces instead, the Patreon version of this will have our faces. It'll be in video. The first time we're releasing video content. Hell yeah.
I'm so glad I showered today.
I know if you picked a good week to do it.
Yeah. My once a month shower really well placed.
What are you, English? Jesus Christ.
Yeah. What you want me what's that show in those set in Japan where
it's oh my god. My friend his team won an Oscar for this show. Shogun.
Yeah. Where the Dutch guy is like, what?
Or not Oscar, the other one. The Emmy, yeah.
It would have been really impressive if they had gotten
yeah.
But let's dive into episode 104, Hellsdivers. Now, it is my understanding that there was a video game of some kind. These newfangled games that have to have some sort of title in front of them. Video game. But no, so there's a video game, Helldivers, right?
Yeah, so
I've never played, but Ben, Katie, and Justin all had. And Eli? Had Eli played?
Eli has, I think, seen bits and pieces of it. Only Ben, Katie, and I have played, but we've played individually hundreds of hours of this game. We've probably played 100 or so hours of it together.
So I was a little behind the curve on what was going on. But we drew inspiration from Helldivers. Tell me a little bit about what attracted you, like where do the mechanics and the design kind of like came from that?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing of Helldivers, I mean, first of all, you can't talk about the game without talking about the clear and obvious yet sometimes somehow missed satire and the commentary on like what it is, which is like militaries sending young hopeful people to die, for whatever cause without, any care for the repercussions thereof. Yeah. But like, I can't imagine how that applies to our current climate at all. I don't think it really does, but can't say that with a straight face.
From a dimension where Star Trek is real.
So real, in fact, that Shawn is dressed as a Starfleet personnel.
This is obviously Command Gold because it's TOS era. And I'm from the Arts and Crafts division. 32 is significantly less interesting than 31.
In any case, so yeah, it's a game that we've loved since it came out. It came out and like it was already very like the day it released, there were like full servers of people on like Reddit and et cetera elsewhere that were taking the role play of Helldivers extremely seriously, which I loved. And like so you could go in, and even if you're dropping in with randos, there's an off chance that everybody in there is like being tactical and acting as though they are the character that they are playing in the game, which is funny because you die often. And if you know anything about Helldivers, you're not respawning. They're sending in the next Helldiver in your
Yeah.
place just to throw bodies at their problems until they're resolved or not, and then you fail. But whatever, you know, up to 20 people dying
Yeah.
for whatever mission you're doing, depending on the situation. And it's just this like, you're very squishy. You have, minimal, you can take a little bit of damage, but not a ton. Everything out there can be lethal. Even the smallest thing, if it gets you in the right position or you're out of ammo and you haven't reloaded properly and you're missing on your little melee push attacks, whatever, you can die from the dumbest shit out there, right? Um, and but in return, you can do untold amounts of destruction.
So it's just glass cannons. Everyone's
Right,
a glass
just
cannon.
everyone's a glass cannon. Even like the tankiest build in Helldivers is still a glass cannon to some degree. So the idea that these people spawn, or they're dropped in, they do a bunch of damage, they get some objectives done, and then they probably die, and that is their the entirety of their contribution to Super Earth is this 7-minute.
Super Earth?
Oh yeah, it's called Super Earth.
Got it.
um
So, all right. So let me ask you this. Um, so a very fun concept for a video game, especially if you just want to like shoot some stuff up. It seems I do like that players are bringing RP to it when it doesn't sound like that's integral to the game in any way. They're just doing that. Beautiful. Um, and this is actually a note that so in preparation for this thing that we're doing right now, the special presentation, I talked to some people who I know are listening to the show and what they thought of episode 104. Because going into it, it's a little bit of a departure, right? Like we have our main cast talk at the beginning and talk at the end, and in the middle we spend a lot of time with a bunch of really weird people. And I was really interested in how the audience was going to take that. And what I heard back was that they loved it. And I have not told Justin this before this recording. I did not tell him I was doing this.
I was on the edge of my seat there. I'm not going to lie.
I saw it. Yeah, if you're watching the video version. But yeah, they absolutely loved it. And the thing that I kept hearing is that like level 20 combat as a listener can become rather monotonous, right? You can go for a long time. A lot of it is pretty complicated. Turns are really long. So, so in this, were we level 20 or like 15?
No, I mean,
it's like we worked out like stat blocks for
yeah, because these were all stat blocked creatures. There were no levels here at all. It essentially, the impetus for it is in order to simulate the glass cannon of it all. Minor devils getting dropped in and being fed the power of like major powerful devils and powerful beings and et cetera as like your stratagem call in, right? And so we'll get into the mechanics of it later, but that was kind of the impetus of it, was just simulating the I can do a fuck ton of damage in a very short amount of time and then die and be fine.
So what I've heard back is that people really enjoyed that because throughout the episode there's constantly new characters coming in, and they're all like pretty small, kind of maybe bit characters, but it keeps it fresh, it keeps it going. It lets the audience kind of meet us four performers in a more like outside of the bounds of our regular characters, which people really seem to like. I certainly liked it listening to it, getting a feel for like, because we all kind of get a huge range of Justin, right? Because Justin's the GM, he's playing everybody. Huge range of Justin, and then each of us is just playing one character usually. So in this case, being like being able to be like, well, this is what Shawn looks like as a barbarian or whatever. I heard that was really fun. So this is the part of the show where I just give Justin compliments and he gets really uncomfortable. But yeah, man,
I'll be over in the corner. Thank you.
I think it was an amazing concept for like, hey, we're gonna have a very combat heavy episode. Let's make it like, let's freshen it up, because I think it would have been pretty easy to be like, all right, you're all level 20, you go fight on the front lines for 3 hours.
Yeah, I mean, and to be totally candid, I had this thought about like, what if? Okay, I don't want to take too long on this, but on Helldivers, I have a secondary app called Voice Attack that is a voice command app for my computer. I say a command word, Voice Attack processes that as insert keystrokes here, blah, blah, blah. And then the game implements those keystrokes as if they happened at my fingertips. The way you call in stratagems, you hold a button, you put in a number of like arrow keys basically in a certain pattern, and they get called in. Well, I have a voice attack command prompt that lets me say, orbital laser. And as I say orbital laser, it automatically inputs the stratagem for me and shoots down. I will try to go and find the YouTube video of the person who created it, because they open sourced it and made it available to everyone. You can like download it for free in Voice Attack and from like their Google Drives and stuff, what all the command inputs are, so that you don't have to do them all yourself to start with, which was very kind of them and very cool of them. I believe they have a disability that makes, motor function a little less, accessible. And so they built this for themselves and have a YouTube channel and a following and everything. And everybody loved it so much that they put it out in the world. So
put the name and link in the description.
Yes.
Remember to do that.
Yes, exactly. So I have all that. But then I renamed all the commands because I'm a fucking nerd to D&D spells. So
orbital laser.
I don't cast. I don't say orbital laser. I say moonbeam. Nice. Or I say I don't say 380 barrage or orbital barrage or anything like that. I say meteor storm or meteor swarm. And so I have all of these built in as 5e D&D spells. And then in my head, I was like, but what if, so Hellsdivers is D&D, but what if also D&D Hellsdivers or D&D Helldivers?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. My homework for it was go make 3 insane people. I was like, oh, okay, great.
Cool, fun.
I mean, maybe they were just little bit characters, but it was so much fun to just kind of be able to figure out the group dynamics of all 12 of the various characters we were bringing in. Like,
yeah.
Everybody hated was it
Tyler?
Yeah, everybody hated Tyler.
We also low-key love Tyler. No.
But yeah, all right, so inspiration. Let's get into the mechanics a little bit more. You had each of us go out and develop 3 stat blocks given certain restrictions, giving us kind of a character build sheet. That sound right?
Yeah.
This was like a year ago for me.
It was a year ago for me too, but yes, I have it pulled up. And basically there were like essentially like a base stat block that everybody used. And then you could choose like a loadout, either like I have them as like spell slinger or warrior, and warrior was given, like a magical, simple, or martial weapon of your choice. If you choose a weapon that lacks the 2-handed property, you also take a shield. And it changes your stats as you make that choice. Or spell slinger was like you gain 3 first or second level spells of your choice and can cast them without expending spell slots or using components, which is fun. Just basically like, this is automatically the equivalent of having like a primary weapon, right?
Yeah.
And then it increased your spell attack and spell DC as opposed to increasing your like to hit or your AC, right? So then so those are like the core abilities, and then there's some passive abilities that are just like, you have like a single legendary resistance that you can use. You have an additional well of 40 HP. You have you can once per day for each ability tier, you can also automatically recharge an ability, and it doesn't reset when you come back in. Like, just different little passive abilities in the background. And then the list of active stuff, which is like, okay, give this nutsack with 40 to 50 HP, uh, disintegrate, or Crown of Stars, or Tensors, or Blade of Disaster, for example.
Who would take Blade of Disaster?
Who would fuck up my whole day with Blade of Disaster?
I mean, a 15% chance to crit is really nice.
It
Really
is
nice.
pretty crazy.
Here, we'll let you guys in on this. As we were updating to the 2024 rules for Arc 2, do you want me to use new Blade of Disaster or old Blade of Disaster?
Is it worse for me or better for me?
It's better for you. New Blade of Disaster like does 10d6 and only normal doubles on a crit. It no longer has. It still crits 18 to 20, but it no longer has the triple crit thing.
We may have to do that, but we'll look further into it.
We'll do some math about it.
Yeah. God, it is just it's one of those things. I think a lot of, and I don't want to go too far into 5.5 stuff, but one of the things that they did that hurts me to my core, and yet I agree with from a practical perspective, is make unpredictable splash damage happen less. You see it in like the nerf of Divine Smite. You see it in getting rid of things like Great Weapon Master. You see it in or changing Great Weapon Master so that it doesn't do the thing that made it basically a tax for fighters at a certain point. And then things like spells like Blade of Disaster, right? Where, I mean, there's not really any spells like Blade of Disaster, but in that case of catastrophic damage, and then if you crit, more catastrophic damage, like, that is just so hard to calculate into a combat. And they took some of that stuff out to make it easier for DMs to prep. And while I understand frustration from a player perspective that my cool thing got nerfed, it is so much easier for a DM.
Honestly, from a player perspective, I'm pretty happy about these things getting nerfed, because I always felt like when I was playing a paladin, I always felt really weird about the fact that I could like output 300 points of damage or whatever on a turn, and then like the fighter, who should be comparable and probably better at physical damage than a half caster like a paladin, was just like, well, I did 14 points, I guess.
I mean, I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration, because I seem to recall someone named Shawn Banerjee playing a fighter in a 4-shot that I ran, who was doing catastrophic amounts of damage as a level 20 fighter, comparable easily to a paladin.
It's true, but I still don't like in-game imbalances like that. And when I wrote my adventure for Wizards, one of the notes I got back in a review was, if you have a paladin, you win this. If you don't, you lose. And I was like, that's a pretty fair critique because of how paladins work.
Yeah, because of the way that they are.
Yeah, because I was asked to write a very difficult tier 3, so 11 to 16.
Yeah.
4-hour adventure. So I did this, and it is difficult. And the people who wanted difficult, high level complexity, I think, liked it. But the paladin note made me rethink about how paladin was designed a lot.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Back to all of this. Yeah. Back to this thing. Yeah, so basically you have the base class, you had kind of two options, kind of the way that the new druid.
Can we take that back from basically I just knocked my ring into this?
Yeah, cool. Basically you have the core stat block, you have the two kind of changing abilities between Spellslinger and Warrior, basically the same way that Warden and whatever the other one is in the new Druid. I think Paladin's similar now. There's a couple of classes. Cleric, not Paladin, but Cleric has a similar option where they're either more magic focused or more martial focused.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things like that were inspired out of the new mechanics and stuff. And then we have the passives that are just something happening in the background for your character. Fiendish Smite, basically Eldritch Smite. And then a lot of these active abilities that were just spells, or I mean, no, they were all spells.
One of the easiest tricks for how to custom design a monster is just give them a spell permanently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A spell that they use in a way that is not spell-like.
Yes. Yeah. Like, oh, this Warforged NPC has a force field, by which I mean they have shield up all the time.
Yes.
But yeah. All right, so how do you feel about how it all came together? How did you feel like on the day? How did you feel like going back through the edit? Did we do what you had wanted us to do in the sense of like gameplay?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys all handled it pretty well. I think Ben edited most of it out, but there was in some of the descriptions, specifically the difference between demons and devils was lost for a few of us, and it was not just one person, it was like two or three. So there was a little bit of that backtracking, but in the grand scheme of things with the mechanics, I think you all went about exactly the way I wanted you. Essentially, I told everybody to make 3 and to make them a little different and be prepared to use all 3 of them or just one, and I think it was very fun that everybody did in fact go in a different direction with each one. I mean, it would have been very easy, especially for you having your first one be kind of the most destructive and effective character the entire session. Which, part of that was a miss on, hey, you cast this thing that gave you all this temp HP. In exchange for that, you can't cast other spells, which is part of Tensor's transformation. But at the end of the day, like, still, not that huge a deal. And something we would, fix if we did it again. But I think overall, it would have been very easy for you to just go back to the well on that and to come back and to have 3 builds that were basically do this again, but different.
Yeah, no, I wanted to play 3 different builds, and I think I ended up bringing out Fiona first based off of what other people were bringing. I was like, oh, okay, then I'll bring someone more destructive and less supportive. But I think I built like a melee, a caster, and a support, if I remember correctly. I still have them. I can pull them up, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I mean, and exactly, and I think everybody did that, right? Like, I don't think anyone pulled the same gimmick twice. I mean, there was gonna be some overlap. There are not 12 super unique configurations that you get out of this. I mean, I'm sure there are to some degree, but like, there's going to be a little bit of overlap when 4 people bring 3 characters. There's going to be some parallel thinking, but even then, I don't even think on the field at the same time we had 2 very similar, characters. I think at one point you and Kalis both had Blade of Disaster out, but the rest of Kalis's build was so much different. Like, the rest of Eli's character build was so different from yours that it didn't feel like the same thing, even though you were literally casting the same spell.
Yeah, I love Blade of Disaster. I love it so much. And I actually pulled up both versions, and I think I do agree that it should be nerfed. But yeah, when I saw that as an option, I was like, well, I'm going to put that on one of my characters, despite the fact that Ved uses Blade of Disaster a lot too. That was like, man, I don't want to be I want to do different stuff.
Well, I do think the in-world explanation for the Helldivers, or the Hellsdivers. Sorry, legally distinct. The in-world explanation for the Hellsdivers is like you have these minor devils that are getting power channeled to them. And I think it doesn't have to be this way, but I think it does make a little bit of sense that in some cases the power reflects the power you would use, right? Like, because it is your power that is funneling to these creatures, right? So I think there's something to be said for, even though it might feel a little duplicative to have this little creature casting Blade of Disaster when that's Ved's thing. I think that's part of the point, right?
Yeah.
Of how this would play out, quote unquote, in real life. You know?
I think that the in-world cosmology makes sense, and I think that might have been part of the reason I ended up going with it, because I was like, oh yeah, she can borrow Ved's Blade of Disaster. Man, I had so much fun. I had so much fun playing this episode. I had so much fun preparing for it. I had so much fun listening back to it. And in a show, like, we really kind of hit the gas and then keep going. Like, and I mean, that's the prompt, right? Like, we start at level 20 and then go. And I think the show has delivered on that. But I really like episode 4 being a little bit of a break, a little bit of a fun interlude.
Which is a little bit funny in the grand scheme of things, knowing that what we had done before that was, I mean, we joke about it in the first bonus action. We joke about it in the like the post-production for episode 1 and probably others. We joke about it in the episode that made the final cut, and not only made the final cut, but is mentioned in the trailer. So we joke about it a lot, that it was a warm-up. And for sure, like, level 20 combat and trying to get used to what you can do and all that stuff and kind of work out some kinks and all that, it was worth having an episode or two where the fights were lower stakes, at least in terms of how bad it could be for you. And I think that was worthwhile. But then this was kind of, okay, let's get some sillies out, have a great time, and now we're gonna fucking go. Because if you've been listening to well, everything that's happened since Hellsdivers, we kind of put the foot back on the gas pedal. And when 7 does come out a week from this release, I think that gets even more pronounced.
Yeah, it does. But back in episode 4, I think one of the other nice things as a player was you walk out and there's no reason to hold back. There's no reason to be like, I'm going to save my 8th level spell slot in case I need to put up no, fuck that. Let's go. Which Ved does anyway, because Ved kind of came into power and was like, why wouldn't I use my 9th level spell slot as the first thing that I do? It's the most powerful thing.
I can solve the problem faster if it's dead quicker.
Yeah, exactly. Wish. Let's go. But like, having characters who are like, I know, the character knows, everyone knows that this is a glass cannon, that this is a Nova moment, right? Like, you're going to burn as bright as you can, and it's not going to be for a long time.
Well, and I think there's even some stakes pulled out of that part too, by saying these creatures are just going to spawn back in hell.
Yeah.
They were already there. Like, because there was literally questions up front in the episode from, I think, Beatrice, but echoed by everyone, that were like, the morality of this seems, and like literally kind of edging into the Helldivers of it all. Like, are we just throwing just pawns at the wall and then they're just destroyed and gone forever? Oh no, they're back here and they actually get a promotion. Okay, no, that's fine.
What a horrifying work release.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. But and it's positioned as like something that's much loved and much celebrated, almost like gladiatorial combat or whatever. Gladiatorial combat. There we go. Gladiatory.
It's a word if it conveys meaning, and
Fair
I
enough.
understood what you meant. So.
Fair enough. Oh, and the only other thing we didn't talk about was the recharge on some of these abilities. So
Oh yeah.
within the spells that were available for those like active abilities, and I think on one of the passives, uh, there's like a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and each tier has a different recharge. So tier 1 abilities, it's a D4, recharges on a 3 or 4, so 50% chance. Tier 2, a D6, recharges on a 5 or 6. And those are like, so it's 5th level spells for tier 1, 7th level spells for tier 2, and then 9th level spells for tier 3. And that's like a D8 recharges on a 7 and 8. So it gets harder to recharge the further up the ladder you go, which kind of mirrors like in Helldivers, the more powerful abilities just have a longer cooldown time, right?
I really like that.
Yeah, so that was the goal of
Just
that.
makes sense as a way to limit how insane this gets. Like, I was just like, from a power scaling balance perspective, that's really cool. Oh, cool, and it also works with the.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, Helldivers developers, if you want to work on developing an RPG together, hey.
We have a publishing company. We've literally done this before.
Hell yes.
I hope this gets to them.
I hope this gets to them before it gets to their legal. I hope it gets to the devs before it gets to their legal department.
Yeah. Like, whoever's cool and in charge of creative, like the IP
Right, yeah,
but not their lawyers.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. We want the creative director, not the attorney. We're good.
Just real quick, I'm gonna look up if there's already a Helldivers RPG happening.
Yeah. Very funny.
No. There's
Well,
there's an unofficial one by 3bugs on itch.io. There's a board game by Steamforged.
I did know that.
To ask them if we can get the IP for an RPG. I don't know why Steamforged wouldn't. They would probably be like, "No, we want that."
But anyway,
yes.
So the recharge of it all was just kind of a way to, first of all, mimic the cooldown times of various things, and second of all, a way to make sure that the turn wasn't just, on this turn I cast Meteor Swarm, and on the next turn I cast Meteor Swarm. Little easier with like Blade of Disaster, when you cast it once, and as long as you don't lose your concentration, you just do it again. But yeah, so the recharge abilities were important to have in there, and I think, I don't know, you guys rolled pretty well on those recharges. I mean, B did 3 disintegrates with the same character in 3 turns. So like, you guys rolled pretty well on that, but it almost kind of makes me wonder, like, should that have been D68, D10, or you know what I mean? Like, raise the recharge on some of those more powerful abilities a little bit.
I mean, how much were you on the fly, like adding hit points? Because on our side, it felt pretty well paced. Like, combat felt paced. Like, how we were doing felt good. But like, how much were you having to adjust for how well we were rolling or overpowered we were?
So I planned for this. And I did not like fudge any adding of hit points or anything like that. Or, I picked creatures that, first of all, had certain resistances, so that if you did X, Y, and Z, maybe it has resistance to the damage. I picked creatures that were big hit point sinks, because I knew that was going to be an issue. I think one of those giants that showed up twice had like 240 hit points or something like that. The mounds of rolling flesh, I think I used the max HP roll of that stat block instead of just the normal hit points. So there were things that I chose on purpose, and then narratively it was set up that this is like a battlefield of untaken care of dead, that there were thousands of people in. So I didn't need to fudge hit points. I could just add an extra monster. Right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Why fake it and add hit points when the whole point of it was I told you up front these waves are going to keep coming until the village is destroyed. It is whether or not there are people in it when it gets destroyed. But yeah, that was
makes
the
sense.
idea.
So was it just a time limit? Were you like, all right, cool, we've been doing this for like an hour and a half?
No, we I guess maybe you might not remember because it's been 15 years since we recorded this.
Back in
But
1989 when we first recorded this.
yeah, exactly.
So much longer than 15 years.
That's way longer than 15 years, my friend. I'm 31 and I was not born in the 80s. So but anyway, the mechanic for how long the battle was going to take was this is how many people are in this village. At the end of every round, you guys rolled a D1. One of you rolled a D100, or two of you, I think, rolled a D100, and that many people got out.
That's right. Yeah.
And you rolled really well early, and then had a couple of bad ones. So I think we went like 4 or 5 rounds total. But you got everybody out as they were about to start breaking down walls. And if the wall had fallen, we stop there and start doing like, okay, what is the % chance that this was Buckley's dad? Like based on what, how many people are left, I had a table of, basically for this many people, this is the target DC. For this many people, this is like on a luck check, basically. If there's
sorry, I don't want to get too far into like what happens because I know this is coming out and 105 and 106 are already out. But for those of you who might be listening to this after 104 without having gone forward, I don't think we've spoiled anything, and we can, yeah.
I don't think so either.
Yeah,
I think
I just wanted to flag it as we're getting closer to like the results of trying to save Buckley's dad. Like
yeah, I mean, it basically like how many people are left is how likely it is that it's someone the party cares about specifically, as opposed to just being a random person that the party might care about writ large. Loss of life in general, bad. Loss of life of family, bad, worse. And we could talk all day about the morality of that line of thinking, but it is true for everyone I've ever met ever. So
if you guys want that to happen, donate $1,000 to us, and we will do a 24. No, that's too long. 16-hour chat. Morality. We'll do it.
Yeah,
$1,000. We're not expensive.
We're pretty cheap in the grand scheme of things. 16 hours, I actually make more than that. No, I don't think I do. That's not true. That's not true. No. It's not as far off as never mind.
Cut it in half because there's
yeah. Okay. No, that's fair. Yeah. But anyway.
My job here is to distract people.
Yes, which is very easy. I am fish in barrel in terms of distraction. The kind of I think my question back to you is, as game designer extraordinaire, as professional, or maybe in your own opinion, semi-professional, but realistically professional game designer.
Yeah, I think professional. That's
Anyway,
your question.
How did you feel? In terms of you got the mechanics a week in advance, and you put some stuff together, and you went to town with it. How did you feel playing it in terms of just overall playability? It sounds like we agree that it was fun.
It was definitely fun. From an RP standpoint, I've already talked about how much I enjoyed it. How did I feel about it from like a game design standpoint? I loved it. It's always a little interesting to be on the side of an adaptation that you're like not familiar with the adapted work. So a little bit of that I was relying on like you, Ben, Katie, and Eli, and y'all. And from this conversation, it seems you got that part of it down. Like you seem to have created a fun adaptation of the game itself. From just a like way to handle mass combat, inject these like glass cannons. Like I thought it was a really interesting concept for how to handle a big fight like this. I think a lot of the 5e how do you handle big fight things and it's Carmen distracting you.
No. Just talking about in 5e, how do you handle the big fight combat things? It just made
Oh yeah.
me chuckle a little bit because you don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are other third parties that have like come forward with systems that always feel pretty like okay, and now do like 6 rolls to determine whether or not your phalanx destroys their barracks or whatever. And that's fine, but not necessarily like I think core to 5e's design aesthetic. Whereas this, I was like, yeah, your main characters are going to be out there like commanding things and like maybe a little bit of a you're in charge of these people and like part of your skill goes to them in some way, like a unifying idea. Like so the 3 of my guys were all getting I don't know what they would get from me, my initiative bonus or something. Um but then as a player, I get to go like fight in a giant, Helm's Deep situation
Yeah.
where like I can put it all out there as if I am defending this with every inch of my life because that's what they are doing, right? So I really enjoyed this as a way to handle mass combats. It does remove you from like the overall like kind of strategic and tactical viewpoints, but again, I don't think 5e is built for that. So kind of leaving those to the NPCs, and in this case, our parked player characters, um, and taking control of expendable
Yeah.
people was super fun. I liked it a lot, and it was probably the most Helm's Deep a fight has felt because usually that zooms out instead of zooming in to figure out the abstraction. So maybe a little counterintuitive, but this might be how I run like big combat, war situations.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that too, just as we move on, as stakes get bigger, as involvement from, as more people become aware that there's a problem, if the sun being blacked out wasn't enough to clue them in. People they're all in their phones, they're doing the TikToks, they're not
On
looking
their
up at the
scrying
sun.
phones.
These fucking kids aren't out in the sun anymore anyway. They wouldn't know. But no, like as more people become like aware that there's a serious fucking problem out there,
Yep.
there's, I think, room for some higher stakes large situations like that. And I think I might adapt certain pieces of this, right, to, like, if you're controlling a squadron of whatever, and it's your turn, maybe they act on your initiative and have some abilities based on the kind of help you could provide them, which I think could be very interesting. I think Dimension 20 did something somewhat similar to that, with their big battle for Crown of Candy. Spoilers for a Dimension 20 series that came out like 7 or 8 years ago.
Thinking about it, I was thinking about that as well, and how well that was like how that was handled.
Yeah, like the squad of archers who were with Ruby could like use their bonus action to dash and use,
Yep.
XYZ in the third. They got sneak attack, like all this other stuff. So I think there's like ways to adapt, kind of marry the two there,
Mm-hmm.
into some of those like larger battle mechanics if that were to come up later on. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I would probably like those two have been the most successful like large battle mechanics that I've seen from a like audience perspective, if that makes sense. Um, and as a player, so I think like if my table was more into the strategic and tactical level of play, then I would probably go with what they did on, or similar to what they did on Crown of Candy. And if my players were just like, I want to be Legolas holding the wall, then I would probably go more with what you were doing.
Yeah, fun.
Take that,
Um,
King.
Please don't do that to me. Don't pit me against Brennan.
Take that, Brennan. You go to Justin's house and you shake his hand and you take it from him.
Apropos of nothing, Brennan, my address is not.
It's in the description. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's in the podcast. It's in the description of the episode. Fuck me.
But it says only for Brennan. So
yeah,
if you're not Brennan, don't look at
it. Incredible. Any kind of thoughts? I mean, I know there are some things that I would change.
What do you got?
I think for something like Blade of Disaster, I might put a turn limit on it.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it just happens because very rarely in the game I'm somewhat representing do you have like a long-term buff of something. Like there's turrets and stuff, but they're not like nearly as effective as like the big Spartan laser that comes down and but like even that sticks around for a little bit and then goes away. There's not like that Blade of Disaster was, if there was an equivalent to that in Helldivers, the game would be unplayable because it would just be a walkthrough on any difficulty. Like, but with that said, like I think being able to limit that to like maybe 1 or 2 rounds and then you got to recharge it. Or like
the spells last 2 rounds instead of 1, and then you have to try again.
Yeah.
To me, thematically with the glass cannon. Sorry, I got distracted by a motorcycle sound.
Yeah, fair enough. We can leave it in. It's not that big a deal.
But yes, so I've just run out of words in the middle of that sentence.
No, I mean that's like one big thing. I think we talked about earlier, maybe taking the recharges up a die value. You know, a 3 or 4 on a D4 is real easy to hit. And while like none of the things that were in there, the things in the tier 1 were like Spirit Guardians, and it's at 5th level, so it's 5d8 instead of 3d8. Slow, which is 6 creatures instead of 4 creatures because it's 5th level or something like that. You know, Scorching Ray and getting 6 rays instead of 3, you know, because it's a 2nd level spell and now it's a 5th level. Fireball, the whatever going up from 8d6 to 10d6, like all that stuff is good but not crazy in the scenario. Especially when you're talking about monsters that are basically just big hit point sinks. Yeah. But I think even at a D6, it's still pretty easy to recharge that. I mean, just thinking of the number of times you're watching like a dragon fight and they get their breath weapon back every fucking round because a 5 or 6 on a D6 is actually not that bad of odds to recharge.
33% odds. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think higher recharge thresholds would make sense. I think it also like maybe just giving them limited uses, because the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, these characters are going to exist for 1, 2 rounds maybe. Like they don't need to have 16 options. They need to have like 3.
Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, whittling it down a little bit would be probably not a bad idea. It was, I think it was pared down enough that it wasn't like you're looking at your stat block like, oh my God, what do I do? Yeah. But I think even pulling a little bit away from it in terms of like those first sets of spells that you get, because I don't think anyone pulled out like an Eldritch Blast or anything like that, you know what I mean? Or Firebolt, because why would they when they can reliably recharge a Fireball? Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely something to be said for that. I think if I like, there's something of wanting to keep it grounded in D&D for our purposes that led me to that. That like, if for example, we were going to do an RPG for the people at Hellsdivers, we would not necessarily like keep in, because those primary weapons are pretty set, you know, on what you do. You've got your shotguns, you've got your rifles, you've got your assault rifles, you've got, you know, some SMGs, whatever. I mean, now that I think about it, though, there are some pretty varied ways you can go about those combinations and things that are more kind of streamlined or effective than others. So, you know, something to think about. But in any case, I think, peeling back some of that a little bit wouldn't hurt. And then, yeah, I mean, I'd love to run it again. Originally, I wanted to run this as like a one shot, totally disconnected from anything else that we were doing. It wasn't even necessarily something I was going to put in with this group. And then I wanted to play it so bad. I was like, how could it make sense? Here's how it could make sense. Incredible.
I really enjoy designing to constraint, much like writing to constraint, right? Like you give yourself I need to get to this goal, or I need to make sure I do or do not do these things, and then figuring out how to do it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I gotta say, as a professional designer, I think you did an amazing job on this.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot.
Super well. Like, I think some tweaks and stuff would make it make sense for other. Like, I think that it was perfectly well designed for what we were doing inside a narrative, right? But to make it a little bit more generalized and balanced, then audience, let us know. Y'all want us to put out a little 5e supplement on how to run this kind of combat? We'll do it. We have
well, and I've thought about that too. So we should definitely, talk a little bit more behind the scenes about that. But I definitely would love to put this out in the world at some point. Even if it's just a pamphlet, like a 2-page PDF, like we have it now.
I mean, simplicity in supplements is key. Like the best way to market something to the D&D audience is make it as smooth of a plugin as possible.
Yeah, fair enough. Before I forget, and before we wrap anything up, I want to shout out my good buddy Brendan, Bren Bread Bear on the internet, who I basically sent, hey, I'm thinking about this kind of, and this was before we were going to use it for the pod. This was like when I was just thinking about wanting to, build this kind of thing to begin with. As someone who also played D&D and Helldivers, I was like, hey, how would you, like, what are some things that you would include for this? And some of those that he responded with made it into the final cut, right? Like the whole concept of you have this base, wimpy stat block that you supplement with like a suite of other abilities. Like that was probably kind of on the mind, and I probably could have gotten there eventually, but Brendan like put that focused right up front in my head as like just the initial response to that message. And we went back and forth a little bit, and some of the things that were suggestions of his made the cut in addition to that. And so just big shout out to Brendan / Bread and Bread Bear, who also has a podcast out called 1,000 Years on the Path. It is a Pathfinder podcast. I'm looking at it. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's an RSS feed. I'll post a bunch of this stuff in the description of the episode. They've got like 35 episodes out. I've listened to a couple of them early on. I've been meaning to get back into it. But like Brendan's just so cool. Been playing D&D with him for a little bit. We met in the Three Black Halflings server, just hanging out in Discord, and then he ended up joining us over on another channel for a campaign. And then as we both eventually just phased out of that due to life stuff, it's very cool to see him going and doing this thing. So shout out to Brendan for a lot of help and well-deserved credit on some of this stuff.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your help, Brendan, not Brennan. Hey, Justin, where can they find our podcast, though?
That would be great. Although theoretically you are listening to this on the main feed on Apple Pods, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, or Spotify. And always Amateurish Productions as the channel, Azara's Fist as the show. And we will do some more of this as we have some more kind of custom stuff going on. However, normally content like this, being our kind of talk backy kind of stuff or mechanics deep dives, going to be on our Patreon at patreon.com/amateurish productions. Not going to spell it because that's a lot of letters, and we realize we did that. But it'll be once again in the description. Link in bio. But yeah, so very excited to do some more of this stuff. We'll probably revisit this at some point, maybe just for some random, probably not connected to the current story, but just to have a little blast at some point. Might do a live stream of it, and we'll get some stuff going on. And then maybe someday this will be out in the world.
Very true. If you have ideas for what we should call these little interview moments, let us know. My brain says legend lore, but I have not in any way looked up if that's available.
Oh, it's pretty good. That's so good. Oh, that's excellent. As good as I felt when I decided that the after episode cooldown was bonus action, and the and the main talkback was post production. It all felt real good. That felt good too. Hopefully, it's not taken.
There's another podcast with the name, but as a sub show, I think we're okay.
Oh, yes, cool.
Thanks for joining us for the first ever Legend Lore production.
So we no longer want your fucking feedback about what you think we should call it.
I mean, unless you got something better. We got time.
That's true.
We don't even have a second one of these planned right now. But I mean, I would love to hear your ideas for what you want out of something like this. A little bit of like maybe an interview discussion show. So feel free to get that feedback to us somehow, or just friggin' at me on.
Be on our Patreon at either the free or any of our paid tiers, and then you can comment on stuff like this post on Patreon, and it will, or you can message us and all that stuff, and you can tell us recommendations and stuff.
That's a solid call to action, yeah. So message me through the Patreon, which you can message if you're on the free tier, so you don't have to give us money to do it. And
but we'd like you to give us money if you can.
Yes, if you can. And if you can give a lot, please give a lot. It'd be great. But yeah, thanks y'all. We'll see you next time
on Legend Lore.
On Legend.
Bye.
I almost hung up the call.